Today's episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast is brought to you by Texan Senior Residential Care Homes, ATD Painting, and Performance Food Group. Texan Senior Residential Care Homes, senior care at its best with a family atmosphere. Obviously, if all seniors had the option, they would be living at home, but sometimes that isn't always possible. Well, guess what? That is where Texan Senior Residential Care Homes comes into the picture. Texan specializes in making its facilities as close to a home living experience as possible. I'm talking full living room, kitchen, dining room, cable TV, music, games, fireplace, you name it. Texan Senior Residential Care Homes has it. They've even got home cooked meals by experts. It's an extra throw-in. Not only that, there are no move-in fees, no visitation restrictions, so your loved ones are free to stop by and visit anytime they please. Texan Senior Residential Care Homes are located at I-635 in Marsh Lane in Dallas, right near Carrollton. For more info, you can call 469-400-7650. Texan Senior Residential Care Homes. And now, let's podcast. Welcome to another edition of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch. I'm the sports editor at Star Local Media, and I'm being joined by Brian Murphy, sports editor for the Frisco Enterprise, Little Elm Journal, and Salina Record, as well as Taylor Ragland, who does sports for the Plano Star Courier, Allen American, and Lake City Sun. We are 3 weeks down in high school football season. Our second straight week that is marred by rainfall and just whole mess of inclement weather delays. First off, guys, how were your games on Friday? How did you guys enjoy your second straight week of being strained in a press box for about an hour and a half, longer than you should have?
It was the first time for me this season.
I was going to say, yeah.
I was at the Star the week before Thursday and Friday. I was kind of spoiled. And then I went to Lake Dallas, Falcon Stadium on Friday, and there wasn't just one lightning delay, there was 2 lightning delays. So that was a lot of fun. It actually happened during halftime, so halftime was like 2 hours pretty much. And then they got a series in the third quarter, and then another lightning delay hit, and then that was another like 30, 45 minutes or so. So that was a lot of fun.
Because you guys were a bit later in the with the rash of delays. Everything was coming west.
Yeah.
So it started off in like the Plano, Allen, Garland area, where a lot of our games were very quick.
Yeah, it moved right down the line because yours didn't even start right before your first delay.
It started. The delay hit right as Saxey was about to run out through its inflatable. So
and I got through. I think there were like 7 minutes left in the first quarter, so it was literally just moving like all the way down the line. So mine was a little better than last week.
It's usually weird because the storms usually come in the Metroplex from the northwest or west to east, but this one was like looping around or something. I don't know, it was weird.
But they got in all 4 quarters of your game, though, right?
They
Which
sure
is because I know like Alan Capel got called off at halftime, and so yeah. I mean, very much we're just 3 weeks in. We've already had 2 weeks where I'm trying to think of the last time we had even 1 week period where at least in the Dallas area you had like one rash of weather delays, let alone 2 consecutive weeks. A very unconventional start to the season, at least from a weather standpoint. But we have 3 weeks in the books, and for a lot of our districts, non-district play is over. So now the fun begins. The games start counting towards standings and playoff berths in the weeks to come. For a lot of our schools, though, we have a lot of schools are on bye this week, so the schedule is definitely a bit lighter than normal. One district that does get going though this week is District 96A, and as we look ahead to the start of that on Friday, and a few teams that have really kind of jumped off the page. One that I think was expected, but then a couple others who have really started turning some heads with their play early in the season. So let's just kind of reflect on, I guess, if you want to call it the big 3 right now in District 96A. And we can start with the school that, when we were doing our district preview podcast, Brian, you weren't here to defend Prosper's honor as me, Taylor, and Kendrick just soundly...
To refresh the listeners, what did y'all say?
I think it was more just like kind of a TBD on just what to expect out of them.
I think that's definitely where I was.
But none of them, we'll say, none of us picked them to make the playoffs, at least as far as our first round
I think I literally
district
had
playoff
them
predictions.
Like 5th with the caveat that, I didn't know how they would adapt and that they could easily rise if they adapted well, which, through 3 weeks it looks like they're doing
we're here to
just
talk
fine.
about we're here to talk a little about Prosper, because so far like Prosper has scheduled 3 6A opponents. They've got their feet wet as far as what to expect out of playing 6A level competition. And as far as every test that's been thrown in their way, they have passed it with flying colors. They are 3-0 and really haven't met a whole lot of resistance en route to that 3-0 mark. Brian, talk a little bit about just the hot start for the Prosper Eagles as they are full-fledged in 6A now.
Y'all ready for a hot take?
Sure.
Well, not scorching hot, but
you're picking them to beat Allen, aren't you?
9-6A winners.
Not quite, but they're going to finish second place in this district. They're going to beat East, and they're going to beat Jesuit. And obviously Plano, given. So they're going to finish second in this district. They blew up Naaman like they should have. They blew up Keller Timber Creek. And then they blew out Flower Mound, which wasn't, totally expected. I think they were on the picket line last week, right?
Yeah.
Prosper, Flower Mound, we all picked Prosper.
That's why, Flower Mound's an improved team in that neck of the woods out in Louisville ISD, and I think the expectation was that, at least relative to those first 2 weeks, that would be a bit more of a gauge as to what they might be able to expect, in District 9 6A. Because Flower Mound, I think, would show well. You saw them against Plano West, and they took care of business there. And I think Flower Mound is good enough to, at least if they were in that district, they could contend for one of those last, 2-3 playoffs.
Yeah, I don't think they'd get in, but I think that they're certainly better than the McKinneys and Plano West have been. Yeah. So I don't think Flower Mound is anything extraordinary, and I would have taken Prosper to win that game.
It was a good litmus test game though for Prosper, and they just smacked around the Jaguars. So what do you attribute this hot start to for Prosper?
The running game.
Yeah.
They graduated their best offensive player in Caleb Adams. They haven't missed a beat. Wayne Anderson, who started at corner last year, played a little running back also behind Adams. He's rushed for over 130 yards in the last 2 games. He's had multiple touchdowns the last 2 games, and he's looked good. And Keegan Shoemaker, he's doing what Keegan Shoemaker needs to do. He's had a great 3 games, throwing touchdowns each game, and, protecting the football. Last season, I remember we talked about this. Shoemaker had a rough stretch to begin the year, and then he got hot as the year went along. He's hot right now to start the year, and he's got a great running game to go with it. And when you have a defense, that forced 3 turnovers last week that picked off, Flower Mound quarterback Blake Short 3 times.
Yeah.
This seems to be hard to beat.
The part about the defense is especially interesting to me because that was the one thing that kind of gave me a little bit of pause at the start of the year was when you look at all the guys that they graduated on defense. They graduated, I think, 10 kids that made the all-district team just off of last year's defense alone.
The district MVP or the defensive MVP at linebacker, they graduated him too. He's off of Texas State, so there's a lot of holes, a lot of question marks to fill there. But
so there were almost too many question marks to make like a full-fledged, a conclusive look at what to expect out of Prosper. You needed to see a few games to kind of get an idea of what they had coming into the year. And so far, with that defense, with all the kids that they replaced, they rank, top 20 in the area in both yards per game allowed and points per game allowed. I think they're only allowing a little over 16 points so far. And they look the part so far. So this kind of validates any expectations that you had coming into this season that Prosper might have handled this 6A transition pretty well.
Now they're going to lose to East.
That's what I was going to say. I think you have to circle September 28th when Prosper and Plano East play, and I think that will tell you a ton about what Prosper has or doesn't have. Because yes, they've been playing 6A teams. Yes, I think Flower Mound is a pretty good program this year. I don't think they're anything special, but they're a decent 6A program. They're going to get McKinney to open district. I don't think McKinney has much this year. So, circle that late September matchup with East, and I think that'll really kind of be the final. Are you here in 6A yet? Are you ready to do this, or do you need another year?
And then they follow that up with Jesuit the next week.
Yeah.
So 2 back-to-back tough tests to really see if they are for real. If they lose those 2 games, then maybe maybe Prosper will have to be fighting for that 4th playoff spot.
Well, and then that gets even more interesting. If they lose to East and Jesuit back-to-back, they have Plano to finish district. So that could be potentially a huge game.
Could be.
Depending, or it could be meaningless if Prosper goes out and handles their business leading up to it. So
Prosper right now ranking 5th in the Metroplex in total offense with 467.7 yards per game. I'm anxious to see that what happens when they play East, because as we now can transition into we've got 2 of the better defenses in the area right now residing in this district, at least through 3 games. The Plano East defense, that's a pretty impressive development with just the strides that they've made on that side of the ball, considering what that unit was trying to build from last year. And I think on paper, Prosper is going to be the most explosive offense that they will have seen up to that point. So I got a chance to see Plano East defense in person for the first time. Really from a press box standpoint, I was on the sidelines taking photos against Lake Highlands, but you can't really get an idea from that vantage point.
You can get an idea of Tyler Owens.
You can hear Tyler Owens just laying the bejesus out of an opposing running back or receiver just fine on the field. But in the press box, you get a bit of a different vantage point.
Right.
The most impressive thing that stuck out in their game last week against Saxe, a 29-7 win, a game that Plano East gave up a touchdown in the very first play of the game. So you're thinking, oh wow, okay, the defense might have a game on their hands. And then so they gave up a 52-yard touchdown to start to Miles Nash, and then despite that 50-yard boost right out of the gates, Saxe still didn't even clear 200 yards against Plano East. So
71 yards passing, too. So, I mean, think about that. We had 50-plus, and then...
They had 19 passing yards after that massive completion.
But that was without their starting quarterback. But
that was by design. That's the thing.
It was because they were testing out the waters with 2 other guys to see what they had. So maybe it was kind of
Well, the plan was to test out the waters with one, just to ignite a little bit with the offense. That was what Coach Mark Red Baron said after the game. Is just to give the offense a spark. They decided to go with a different name at quarterback. They rolled with backup Xavier Foreman and in place of Anthony Beltran. But then Foreman got banged up in the third quarter. On him, he got stuffed on a short run, and after the game he was on crutches, couldn't put any weight on his right foot. So that situation is, it remains in flux as Saxe continues to try to find its identity. And a tough draw on their part because they got a Plano East defense that has just been lights out to start the year. Like I said, they're averaging let's see how many yards per game allowed. They are at just 154.3 allowed.
Not many.
154.3 allowed through 3 games. They're only allowing 7 points per game. Taylor, you wrote a lot about this defense at the start of the year. It really is a unit that does seem to be doing its best to make amends for some of the their tougher times last season.
I think it's just the commitment that they had to this defensive unit from the moment last season ended, and probably from the moment they gave up 599 yards to one guy in a single game. They began working on this and figuring out what was wrong. And I think that, as silly as it sounds, or not silly, but maybe as cliche as it sounds, it's fundamental things. You go out to watch at East practice now, and they run a pursuit drill on defense over and over and over and over. And they run tackling drills, and they run, that stuff gets overlooked sometimes, I think, to just pure athletes, or especially at the 6A level. Let's just put our guys out there and let the athleticism work. But they are just tackling well, which is an underrated skill, obviously, on defense. I think that it's a big ask for them to improve as much as they have, and I think they've stepped up. But I think a lot of it is simply just the commitment. Joey McCullough said that he spent almost 100% of his time in the spring, in the summer, in the fall so far, just making sure that the embarrassment, frankly, that happened last year didn't happen again. And it's all the little things adding up. I think they're very multiple. I think they're very they provide a lot of different looks. They obviously switch defensive fronts because of Josh Bogowski, basically, because they feel like that guy can play all over the place. He can go down and play end, or he can come back and play linebacker. He can cover guys. They think he can do a lot of different things. So that always helps to just have different looks. But I think it's just fundamental stuff. Like I said, you go out and you watch them run a pursuit drill and just beat that into their heads over and over and over, and clearly something's working.
The one thing that stuck out is they were also at a massive disparity in field position all throughout that game, and they still only allowed Saxe to get into the red zone one time on one drive. I want to say, I counted it up, there were 10 drives where they at some point had the ball past their own 40-yard line. So Saxe had promising field position all game long, and only one drive, I want to say it was in the third quarter, did they actually finally get into the red zone. So, Plano East defense was up against it from a field position standpoint, and they did not budge. Another thing that really stuck out is and this is as we kind of segue now into another dominant defense in Allen, kind of an Allen-esque trait, and that's the job that Plano East did in the second half at the line of scrimmage. And when you're able to, because early on, the story of the game early on was Saxe and just the job that they were doing on the line of scrimmage, and then you got to see Plano East progressively wear them down. You mentioned Blagowski. He was front and center for some big plays there. Guys like Kevon Hamilton, Cameron Crosley, they were also in on some big plays defensively up front. Just the job that they did controlling the Mustangs in the second half. And that's something that is very commonplace for Allen, who's also having just a banner start to the year on defense. Allen has played, so their game on Friday against Capel only lasted one half before weather hit, and they decided to call it off. It does count, though, towards both their records. Allen was up 21-0 at the half. With that game, Allen has played 10 quarters this season, and they've held the opponent scoreless in 9 of them. And the only quarter where they didn't was the fourth quarter against Utah East. They gave up 20 points in that fourth quarter, but they were leading 52-0.
So they've
So they
pitch a shutout all season.
They were cycling in their backups
Yeah.
at that time. So yes, against the starting unit, they have not allowed a touchdown essentially this season, which through 10, obviously that number will not hold for the rest of the season. It would be impressive if they did go the entire regular season just shutting everybody out, but that number's bound to break at some point. But nevertheless, yeah, I mean it's your typical Allen hot defensive start. It feels like every year that unit is always just comes roaring out of the gates. And we were just rolling off some of the great numbers for Plano East. Allen has only allowed 167.3 yards per game, just a little over 6.5 points per game. Sorry, this previous number was for yards per game allowed. And kind of like East, it's the head of the snake, so to speak, with this Allen defense is that defensive line, and just the job that they do, because they have, as they do at most positions, they have a lot of depth there.
I was going to say that's the thing that strikes me about both of these teams. Even the Plano East defense, McCullough's main thing, aside from solid fundamentals and actually just playing solid fundamental defense, is they wanted to be too deep everywhere, and I think they are. I mean, you look at a guy like Jalen Brown. Playing in the middle of that defensive line, you limit his plays, and every play he's in there, he's more effective. And then you have somebody that can come in and handle business. And then you look at Allen, and that's a team that's got 4 guys that can come in. So I think that's
there's no drop off because they just come at you in waves with the way that they rotate on the defensive line. So while you have your familiar cast of standouts, guys like Jaden Jernigan, Seth Mason in the interior, and then on the outside you have Emmanuel Nakori, Brennan O'Brien, and Cole Latos, and they just cycle those guys around all throughout the game. So you're not going to see them every single series, but the cumulative toll of those rotations, it really kind of takes hold in the second half, which is where Allen has traditionally been at its best, when its depth really begins to assert itself. And it's tough to argue with the results. I'm anxious to see. We've already circled September 28th for Prosper and Plano East. I believe the week after that is or the district game after that. I forget when the bye is, if it's the following week or October 12th. But nevertheless, I believe after Prosper, Plano East gets Allen. So we're just talking about just what a great start the East defense has had, and then we'll see what happens Friday against McKinney Boyd. But after that, at least statistically, the pressure's going to ramp up a bit with what they've got with what Prosper and Allen have shown so far, and vice versa. I'm anxious to see how Allen handles that vaunted passing attack out of Plano East, and just the always physical, ever potent running of Trajan Scott.
When was the last time Plano East beat Allen?
When was the last time?
The last time that a PISD team beat Allen was 2005.
Wow, and that was Plano or Plano?
It was Plano.
Okay,
so
yikes.
So it's been a long time.
Prior to that,
yeah. It's been a hot minute. Now East has come close, and that's another reason why, why Plano East Allen is just jumps off the page a bit. There have been times in the past where East has almost snuck up on them. There's a game 2 years ago, I want to say it was.
Here in 2016, it was 38-31 Allen.
There was a game 2 years ago where East was up in the fourth quarter on Allen. And then Allen, Mitchell Jonke made some big plays there to help them retake the lead. Defense got a big stop to deny one last push by East, and then there was a few years ago a game that was on ESPN 2, where it was basically a showcase game for Allen. Allen was state and nationally ranked at the time. Plano East was just kind of it was just another year for them, and then they rose to the challenge. And I want to say that game was 52-48 or something wonky like that. East gave Allen all they could handle. So there have been times in years past where East has kind of snuck up on the Eagles. So we'll see. We could very well be in a situation where we have 5-0 Plano East against 5-0 Allen.
Yeah.
That'd be something worth getting hyped for.
You are correct, by the way. It looks like the bye week comes between.
So it'll be October 5th. So so both teams will at least be rested up.
Yeah, October 12th is the East Allen game.
So that should be a fun one. So we've got a bit more on the docket, some more standout moments from the past week, including a very unique performance out at Clark Stadium last Friday from Mesquite quarterback Dylan McGill, and we'll have our thoughts on that. But in the meantime, we had a chance to catch up with Dylan prior to him to talk about his big game and their big win over Plano West, and we will see what Dylan McGill had to say after a word from the sponsor. Let's take a quick break to talk about ATD Painting. Whether it's painting, staining, carpentry, residential, commercial, interior, exterior, if you need it painted, ATD Painting has got you covered. At ATD Painting, their goal is to provide a home improvement experience that is a great value, trouble-free, and enjoyable. And painting is really just kind of scratching the surface as to what these appointments entail. For ATD Painting's interior projects, things like painting, wall repair, ceiling repair, they'll make sure that your floors and furniture furniture protected and that everything is all cleaned up afterwards. For exterior projects, not only will they do the painting, but they will hand scrape loose paint, reattach loose boards, recalc windows or doors, plus much more. Not only that, if you visit their website right now, atdpainting.com, you can find a coupon for $200 off a complete exterior purchase. Once again, ATD Painting. They've got 4 locations in the Metroplex, including in Plano and Louisville. For more information, call 972-694-8888 or visit atdpainting.com. That is ATD Painting. Check it out to see just how affordable professional painting can be. And now, let's get back to the podcast. We are out here at Hanby Stadium right next to Mesquite High School talking with Dylan McGill, junior quarterback for the Mesquite Skeeters. Mesquite fresh off a 44-20 victory last week against Plano West. Dylan, thank you for taking the time to join us. Congratulations on the win last week.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
It was a nice one of the higher scoring games that y'all have had under Coach Fleener. Just thinking back to last Friday, what were the emotions like after the game, and just how proud are you of the team for being able to pull off a win like that?
Well, my team, we've really been working really hard for this. Off season has really been tough. Like, we pound and pound and pound, and I'm going out and showing out. That's what we do.
Now you had a big hand in the victory as well, as did the entire offense. A very unique performance for you. Just to recap, you completed 5 of 6 passes for 203 yards for 5 touchdowns. So every completion resulted in a touchdown. You've had some time to let that performance sink in. Just when you think back to Friday, just kind of put that performance in perspective, and you certainly have to imagine one of the more unique games that you've played.
Yes, sir. Just preparation is the biggest thing for us. Take every rep in practice as it's a game snap, and just execute every snap.
Now there were quite a few long TD passes in that as well. You guys were able to stretch the field on Plano West quite a bit. Where did the kind of the idea come in that preparation that kind of showed you all that, okay, we should probably try to attack them deep a little bit this game?
The whole game was really our matchups in it, and how they were coming down on us and stuff. So, just put the ball in the playmaker's hands, let them do the job.
And you had some receivers that were just running wide open back there in the secondary, and I wonder, as a quarterback, like, what's kind of going through your mind when you drop back and you see one of your targets just that wide open so deep? Because on the one hand, you're not having to fit it into a tight window or anything, but on the other hand, he's so wide open, you kind of almost have to make the completion. Just what's kind of going through your mind there?
Really, it's just make the best throw you can, and I don't know, it's just get it out there to them. It's just,
it helps to have a guy like Devin Davis, who is, just the job that he did on Friday. Just talk a bit about what he brings to this team and just how easy he made your job on Friday.
Devin Davis is a huge leader on this team. He's a grinder. He never quits on snaps, and whatever ball you throw out there, he'll get it.
Now you guys had to fight through a bit of a weather delay too. Second straight week you've had to do so it's probably nothing new for y'all. But just how did you guys pass the time during a delay on Friday?
Staying focused. The game turned into mental. When we have a delay like that, like we had past couple weeks, just staying focused and keeping our minds right.
Now all season it hasn't just been you back there taking snaps at quarterback. You and Arturo have been rotating all season. Just talk a bit about what he brings to the table and how your skill sets kind of complement each other for this offense.
Arturo, he's a huge leader. We help each other out. As quarterbacks, we gotta be best friends with each other. So, but Arturo, he's my best friend out here. So.
Now, as part of a quarterback committee, just talk a bit about kind of how you approach each game, and how you kind of try to maintain focus, because you guys kind of go into the game not entirely sure just how many snaps you're going to get.
Well, we just stay ready. That's all we do. Stay ready every snap.
And now so looking at the offseason, Coach Fleener made it a real emphasis this offseason to talk about getting stronger, both physically and mentally. Just talk a bit about the work that you guys put in during the offseason to get ready for this year.
Oh man, this offseason was intense. We knew what we had to do. We had to prove, and we had to beat teams this year to get to places where we want to be and execute.
And now, you've got some confidence now riding into Thursday. You're your last non-district game before things get rolling in 11-6A. You guys play LD Bell right back here at Hanby on Thursday at 7 o'clock.
Yes,
what is Coach's message to the team heading into Thursday's game?
stay focused, mental game, ball out.
Awesome.
That's what we gotta do.
That'll do it, folks. This is Dylan McGill with the Mesquite Skeeters. Like I said, he and the Skeeters will be back here at Hanby Stadium on Thursday at 7 o'clock, wrapping up the non-district portion of their schedule against LD Bell. Dylan, best of luck to you guys on Thursday. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks again to Dylan McGill for taking the time to chat for our Student Athlete Spotlight, highlighting the Skeeters' big win over Plano West and his hand in that win. So Taylor, you were at that game, so you got to see a passing performance that was all too unique. Is it? I mean, there's no way to know. We don't know every single stat line from every single game that's been played so far, but it feels like this has got to be one of the most efficient passing performances in the state so far.
I mean, yeah, it has to be just based on the numbers. I mean, just as a refresher, Dylan McGill was 5 for 6, so 83% of his passes, only the one incompletion, 203 yards, and 5 touchdowns.
That's right.
Every pass went for a touchdown.
5 completions, 5 touchdowns.
Every single pass.
And he averaged over 40 yards per completion.
Yep. Man, it was a strange game in a lot of ways. I mean, it came out in the third quarter, and there was a sequence. I don't know if I've talked about it. I guess I haven't on the podcast, but I know I talked about it in my rapid reaction. But there was a sequence where it was like blocked punt, touchdown for Mesquite, and then 47-yard fumble return on a missed end-around reverse pitch thing that Mesquite tried to do, and Dalen Miner took it 47 yards for West, and then Mesquite came right back out and threw like a 69-yard touchdown pass. Like it was chaotic, and his stat line is kind of the ultimate like, just how does that happen? But that game was strange all the way through, and basically, it kind of came down to, Mesquite had 2 guys run for 70 plus yards, and it seemed like every time they would just set up something crazy, and McGill would hit them. I mean, there were 2 touchdowns I can think off the top of my head where the receivers were open by 15, 20 yards.
Yeah. I was watching some highlights, and they were just guys running free.
Those are almost even tougher, I think, because it's like, I can't screw this up. Like, that dude is open. There's nobody within like 30 yards of him. And it's tough on the receivers, too, to just stand there and like basically receive a punt and then just turn around and run. And that was actually something that Jeff Fleener said after the game. He's like, I was proud of the focus, because that is not – it's a lot easier to be in the middle of your route and be hit in stride than to be like, I'm completely so open, I don't even know what to do with myself. But every single time McGill was on the money, and the receivers made sure they had it and took it to the house. So
was the case because they only passed the ball 6 times all game, so it's just a case where
they technically passed the ball 12 times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Arturo Flores came in and went 3 for 6 for 50 yards. Right. So they did split time a little bit.
Okay. Was it in garbage time, or they kept interchanging the 2 just throughout the game?
It was weird because Flores, I believe, started. I know Flores started. And they went with McGill, and then it was like they would get up by a comfortable lead, 14, 20, whatever the case might be, and then maybe put Flores in for a series. But then as soon as West would kind of come back, McGill would go right back in, and eventually, looking at the stat line now, what happens when McGill goes back in. But it was, it was strange. It was definitely it was a weird game basically throughout. I don't know if the weather had a lot. It was strange.
I just come to expect crazy things happen when you have funky weather games. Like you always get something a little unconventional when you have inclement weather involved. Brian, you had a chance to see 2 of Frisco ISD's finest last week. On Thursday, you got to take in what sounded like a heck of a game between Highland Park and Frisco Lone Star, and then you got to see Frisco Reedy just continue its torrid ascent through this season on Friday as they took care of Lake Dallas. Just what were your takeaways? And I think it's 3 weeks in, it does feel like these 2 have kind of separated themselves from the pack as far as being the elite of the elite within Frisco ISD. So, what is your read right now? And I guess first off, talking about Lone Star and Highland Park. A game that went right down to the very last play, a walk-off field goal by the Scots for a 10-7 victory.
I did not have that one at 10-7.
By a backup kicker.
By a backup, that's right.
A guy that started at defensive back the entire game, played defensive back the entire game. Highland Park's original kicker had missed 2 field goals earlier in the game. So when they drive down, and Coach Rayburn, Lone Star head coach, even told me after the game, he's like, they played a little bit of prevent defense, and they went for a critical 4th down just a minute and a half before that, near midfield. Really risky 4th and 4. They didn't get it. They went for a deep pass on it, oddly enough, and they didn't get it. And so Highland Park gets the ball back, and Rayburn said after the game, he was like, we weren't worried about their kicker because he missed some gimme field goals early in the game. But they drive down. They played a little bit of a prevent defense. I don't know why they did that, because their defense was so dominant that entire game. I think they could have just stopped them if they just stuck with their original game plan, but they just kind of let them, get 10, 15 yards here and there, and then with literally 1 second left on the clock, they brought in a backup kicker, and us in the press box, we didn't even notice that it was the backup kicker for a while. I know some tweets are floating around that, they mentioned the original kicker, Wesley Winters. They said that he kicked it, and then there was corrections. I know Sports Day tweeted out in there they needed to correct it. And I myself didn't think that they threw a backup kicker out there. We didn't find out until after the game. And then, he made it, and a 10-7 finish in a game that was – I thought it was weird. When I was talking to Rayburn, I described the game as weird, and he was like, I didn't think it was weird. It was just two heavyweights just going at it, which it really was. Highland Park scored their lone touchdown so early in this game on their second drive with 7:44 left in the first quarter. And I was like, man, Chandler Morris is legit. He threw a deep bomb. I don't remember the guy's name from Highland Park. It was a 40-something yard pass play, and then they scored 2 plays later. Morris just walks it in. And I was like, man, Highland Park, this is about to be just a slugfest back and forth. And then it was just punt, literally just trading 3-and-outs, trading punts. And, Lone Star got a touchdown right there at the end of the first half. It was 7-7. I even made a joke on Twitter after the end of the third quarter. And I was like, man, is Highland Park or Lone Star ever going to score again? Stay tuned to find out, because it was just punt, interception, punt. And Lone Star actually had 3 turnovers in this game. If they protect the football, and I even told you earlier today, I was like, man, if they had MJ Rivers, and this is no knock on Julian Larry, it's his first year as a varsity quarterback he started every game at corner last year. He did play well. He played well. He kept them in this game. He made some great plays with his feet. Yeah. But MJ Rivers, if he was the quarterback of this game, he's playing at Illinois. I've been seeing some of his highlights. He's playing as a true freshman at Illinois right now. If he's in this game, I think Lone Star wins by a lot. And once again, no knock on Julian Larry. I just think MJ Rivers was that good, and he made that offense so dynamic. But with this defense, this is one of the best defenses in the state right now. And with Lone Star, you mentioned a top defense in Allen. They've only given up, 2 touchdowns this year. Yeah. 1 to Denton in garbage time, late in the fourth quarter. They allowed 2 points to Richland on a safety. That game was a blowout in week 1. And then they gave up that touchdown to Chandler Morris in Highland Park on the second drive of the game. After that, they kept him out of the end zone. So something to say about that Lone Star defense.
Impressive considering just some of the heavyweight names that they graduated from that unit last year.
Oh, yeah.
Reedy, but then you saw Reedy doing its thing on Friday, and Reedy has just been taking names all season long. And now, we thought heading into that game against Lake Dallas that could be, your de facto 7-5A D2 championship game. We'll see, obviously, what teams like Lovejoy and Denison have to say about that. But so far, no one's been touching Reedy.
That Reedy Lake Dallas game wasn't that close.
Really?
It really wasn't. It was close at halftime scoreboard wise, but I don't know if the lightning delays had anything to do with it, but both teams had to go through the delays.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
It's not like it really hurt one team more than the other. It's a shame that Reedy and Lone Star won't play this year.
I know.
They won't even play in the playoffs because the two
we were
divisions.
1 year too late.
I know. And they played last year, and that game was it was really highly anticipated. Reedy started the year 8-0. Lone Star was 7-1 because they lost to Denton Ryan. That was their only loss, and that was down to the wire also. Yeah. When MJ Rivers got tackled at the goal line, he could have tied that game, gone in overtime against Spencer Sanders and Denton Ryan.
That's some Friday Night Lights stuff.
Oh, it was
the movie, the
Wild.
original.
The TV show.
The best Friday Night Lights content.
But yeah, and so it's a shame that they won't play. I know someone from Reedy or someone tweeted something out with some offensive line highlights from their game against the Colony, and I quote tweeted and I said, that Reedy offensive line might be the best in Frisco. And if Lone Star wasn't in the district, I would have said they are for sure the best in Frisco, and that's no knock on Lone Star either. And then some guys from Lone Star got their hands on it, and some guys from Reedy, I won't mention names, and guys from Lone Star. It was no it wasn't nothing too intense, but it was some friendly trash talk going back and forth. And I mentioned how it's a shame that they shouldn't play, that they won't play together against each other this year. And I stirred the pot a little bit on Twitter. It was fun. I just left it there, and I was like, all right, yeah, y'all go at it. But yeah, I have no idea what would happen if these two teams played because they both look really good. Reedy beat a really good the Colony team. Yeah. In week 2, they blew out Plano West, which I'm not surprised. A lot of people were somewhat surprised with them blowing out a 6A school in week 1. But I think that this was a huge statement win over Lake Dallas. They held Depperschmidt in check.
Yeah, that's like to hold that offense to just 14 points.
Yeah.
Like I think that's a statistic that when we get to the end of the regular season, you look back on. I mean, I'm not sure there'll be too many other nights, if at all, this season where Lake Dallas is held to just 14 points.
And that was a point of emphasis all week because Depperschmidt had 5 touchdowns and I think over 400 total yards in the playoff game last year.
He's been doing the same thing this year.
It was perhaps his best game ever.
Yeah.
And he's had some great ones, but that was his signature performance was last year against Reedy.
And he had one of his lesser games of his career, and that's not a knock on him. I'm not trying to knock on him.
No, it's more of an indictment on just how good that Reedy defense is.
Oh yeah, that Reedy defense is the real deal. He threw his first interception of the year too. I know it's just 3 weeks in, but that Reedy defense made him look like an average quarterback, and he is not an average quarterback at all.
Yeah.
Is it wrong if I put you on the spot and ask, like, if we had Reedy and Lone Star playing on Friday night, what would you put a point spread for that game at? Not to stir the pot any more than you already have between those two.
I thought Highland Park and Lone Star was going to be a shootout. I thought it was going to be 40-something to 30-something or 30-something, 30-something, whatever, and it was 10-7.
Yeah, I mean, the same, like, the method to the madness was a bit different, but you instead got two teams that were a bit more, the competition, kind of came on the defensive side versus the offensive side. But they showed that they were every bit as, fairly evenly matched just from
I still think Lone Star would win.
Take Lone Star by 7.
Yeah, it'd be no more than a 10-point margin. No more than that.
It really is a shame. That'd be such a.
It really is because, like I said, Lone Star doesn't have MJ Rivers and what's the I'm blanking on the running back from Allen.
No, Kirby Bennett.
Kirby Bennett. Yeah, I don't know why I blanked on him. Yeah, how could I forget him? And then they lose Nick Bolton, who's at Missouri, probably the best linebacker in 5A and the DFW last year, and a bunch of other guys on defense, but they're still legit. The offense isn't as explosive as it was last year, but it'd be somewhere around 24-17-ish, somewhere in that range. But we'll never know.
Yeah. So. All right, so that's that is a look at just some of the happenings from this past week in high school football. The upcoming week, it'll be a bit of a light coverage week just because so many of our schools are on bye, but nevertheless, we'll be back on Thursday to talk a bit about our game of the week. If y'all get a chance, go to our website, starlocalmedia.com, and vote on that. Our 5 selections for that game of the week poll this week. And with that, folks, that'll do it for this edition of the podcast. Brian Taylor, I appreciate y'all for tagging along. Hey, folks, you enjoy your week, and we will talk to y'all later. Thanks for checking out this edition of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast, brought to you by Performance Food Group. Performance Food Group delivers more than 150,000 food and related products to customers all across the country. If you want to get in on that process, PFG just might have a spot for you. Their McKinney office is currently hiring. Job openings include Class A CDL drivers and warehouse order selectors, as well as many other entry and part-time positions. An ideal choice for college students or people just wanting to find new careers in general. For more information, you can visit their website at pfgc.com/careers for more job openings. If you prefer to contact them by phone, you can call at 214-491-3130 for more details. Once again, that is Performance Food Group, located in McKinney at 500 Metro Park Drive.